Good afternoon, and welcome to today's VetNet Career Connections Track presentation, where we'll be discussing the trucking industry as a post-service career opportunities for our nation's veterans. My name is Mike Shenik, and I'm the Program Manager for VetNet here at the Institute for Veterans and Military Families, located on the campus of Syracuse University. Before we get started, a few housekeeping notes on how to participate and ask questions during today's Hangout. If you are participating live, please feel free to speak up at any stop and ask your question to our presenters, or you can utilize the chat function by clicking the chat icon at the top left of your screen and typing it in the comment box. For those of you watching out live on our YouTube stream, please feel free to type your question in the comment box and we will relay that to our presenters. And finally, you can always type your question out in the Google Plus event page and we'll make sure that that is relayed as well. I'd now like to turn things over to Jim Ray, who is the co-founder of FASTPORT, which is the company that is handling the trucking track for hiring our heroes. He's going to introduce our panel, and then we'll get started with the PowerPoint presentation. So, Jim, over to you.
It's a pleasure to be here today, and I thank everyone who's attending for attending. Again, my name is Jim Ray. I'm the co-founder of a company called FASTPORT, and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce asked for our help with their Hiring Our Heroes program to run what they call the trucking track, which is their ambassador to the trucking industry. So if we could move to the first slide, I'll get started. So what I'm going to talk about today is to give a brief intro to the trucking industry targeted towards veterans who may want to transition as professional drivers or mechanics or even into the different office positions that we have. I also have three really great speakers that are going to follow me, and I'll introduce them right before they speak. But the first is with the company called JB Hunt, and they're going to discuss their company as well as the Military Skills Waiver, which is a way that veterans moving into the transportation industry can make maybe $10,000 to $15,000 more per year on top of the salary. The next company that is going to present is TMC. And they're specialists in long-haul trucking with flatbed trailers, which we'll discuss. And the last is a company called Troops into Transportation, which is a CDL school that specializes in transitioning veterans into transportation. All right, let's move on to our first slide. As I mentioned before, my company is the trucking track for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Hiring Our Heroes program. Our job is to represent the industry as a whole. For the next slide. Our mission, given to us by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, is to inspire, educate, and hire 50,000 service members into great jobs with great employers into the transportation industry. We only launched a few months ago, and since launching, we've inspired our partners to commit to hiring 20,000 veterans, and we've connected over 5,000 veterans to our partners. We also have a wonderful mentoring program, and we have 30 or more mentors on any given day that can talk to veterans about entering our industry. Now, before we move on to the next slide, I want to put a challenge out there. So for the next 7 days from this webinar date, I'm going to ask anyone to answer a question, and we will, as a group, the presenters on this group will pick the best answer to the question, and we'll send that person $250 as a prize. You can also type your answer to this question in the group chat during this webinar, and we may, at the end of it, if we have time, take a look at a few of them to see how good they are. So here's the question I'm going to pose to everybody on this webinar. I want you to look around the room that you're in, and if you can find anything that is made by man but was not transported to you by truck or somewhere in its manufacture influenced by a truck, then you'll win the $250, and the best answer will be the one you get. So let me get this feedback on for a second. Okay, feedback's gone. So again, I'm going to pose the question again. So you need to find something in the room that you're sitting in that was made by man, and it was not transported by a truck and not influenced in its manufacture by a truck. Okay, and the best answer wins. All right, so now I want to talk a little bit about the trucking industry. So in our nation's entire history, there has never been a greater need for truck drivers. So move on to the next slide. So some companies are estimating right now between 30 to 50,000 empty trucks. So just to think about that, each one of these trucks can cost up to $150,000 a piece, and they're sitting in lots doing nothing. Estimates are all over the place, but many estimates say there's 230,000 open positions today just to meet the current demand. And for the next 5 years, it's projected to increase by 33,000 drivers per year. The scariest of all these statistics is that the average age of the truck driver is 55 years old. So we're reaching a retirement cliff. The good news for a veteran thinking about the industry is that probably you'll never find another industry that needs you more, and that translates to great pay and job security. Now, as an industry, we truly love to hire veterans. There are a lot of reasons, but I'm going to list a few. One thing is that this over a decade of this intense conflict has refined your talents. You're among the most dedicated and loyal employees that we see. You work extremely well in teams. You're able to handle diverse terrains and weather. You're very trainable, conscientious, safe, and you're fit, which is very important to us because we're moving, we're outside, we're loading, we're unloading, we're doing a lot of things that require being in good shape. And probably the most important thing of all is that you're hardwired for logistics. A lot of people say that the largest logistics organizations in the world is our U.S. Military, and I've also heard that the largest logistics operation in the history of the world is when we moved our troops and our materials to the first Iraq War. So this is a funny thing, though. We desperately need great talent in our industry as drivers and mechanics and even office employees. Okay, and veterans are perfect fits for our jobs, but we're having some difficulty attracting them, and that is what the trucking track was invented for. The thing that we run into the most is that there's some myths about our industry, which our speakers are going to dispel today. One is that we have low pay. Our starting pays can range from $42,000 a year to $65,000 a year, and in some cases and in some areas even more than that. There's another myth that there's no home time, that you're always on the road driving a truck, and over 60% of our positions have significant home time, if not every night. A lot of people say that it's very hard or expensive to get into because you need special schooling. That is not the case. Many of our people that we work with help you hold your hand through the training. Another myth is that there isn't career advancement. The company that I ran had over 100 employees, and I'll tell you, over 100 office employees and tons of drivers. And of the office employees, over 60% of them had started in a truck. And you'll find all over our industry entrepreneurs that have come out of a truck to start their own companies or buy their own fleets or do a huge host of pretty amazing things. And the last one, and this is the one that rankles us the most, is that it's not a terribly interesting job, or it's not important. So I'm going to, before I hand over to my first speaker, I'm going to flip over and just address that last point, that it's not as interesting, as important as you may think. So let's go on to the next slide. Now, if you remember my challenge, try to think of something in the room that wasn't influenced by a truck. I mean, that's really hard to do. If everybody's thinking about it now, they're probably having some tough times doing it. Okay. What we move is just remarkable. This first picture is a picture of a Baptist church being moved in Salem, Massachusetts. The entire church lifted up and moved. Next picture. This is the famous move of the Challenger space shuttle as it was moved to the museum across Los Angeles. Beautiful move. Again, the transportation industry. Next slide. My company specialized in some things. One thing that we did is we moved rock concerts around. So we moved U2, we moved the Rolling Stones. We were really good at circuses. Some of our drivers are actually trained to handle some of the islands. Some of the animals. We even had a lion specialist. This picture right here is the Hiring Our Heroes did a special promotion where 2 veterans got to be roadies with Kiss and Def Leppard last summer during the Hiring Our Heroes tour. Very cool thing. Next one. Now this is where this deals a little bit with more with how important our industry is. So I often, if I'm in a big room where people can answer questions, I ask what this is a picture of. They say, well, a bunch of Walmart trucks. Well, this line of trucks was actually miles and miles long, and what it is was our industry going into Katrina directly after the hurricane to resupply New Orleans. What we do in this business more than anything else is that when we're needed, we go to the places where we're needed, and we're often, second in right after our military people. Next slide, please. In a big group, I ask this question: what are these things? And it usually takes people a couple minutes to look at this really carefully and realize what this is. So what this is flatbed trucks pulling the broken steel out of the World Trade Center after they fell, and they moved it to a museum in Pennsylvania. And one thing that we say is, when we have tragedies, we're one of the ones that actually and literally pick up the pieces. But the most inspiring thing, next slide please, is that we are also probably some of the most important people to rebuild our industry, or rebuild when hurricanes happen, or natural disasters happen, or tragedies happen. So this is actually a picture of the flag raising ceremony at the World Trade Center. And one of the great legends in our business is that some of the same drivers who pulled the broken steel out were returned with the new steel to rebuild even better. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. So now I've talked a little bit about the industry, giving you a flavor. I want to remind everybody how incredibly important veterans are to us. Our mission is to hire 50,000 of you into our industry. You're a perfect fit for us. The Chamber of Commerce asked us to put together some of the best carriers in the business to serve as examples and wonderful places to work, to help inspire veterans into good jobs, but also to actually hire them. The carriers shown on this list are the ones that are formally affiliated with this part of the program, and each one of these carriers has mentors that you can talk to. And today we're lucky enough to have two of these carriers and our sponsored CDL school to talk to you directly. The first carrier, if their audio is working, we're going to talk to is JB Hunt, and the next one is TMC, and then we're going to end it up with the CDL school. So let's go to the next slide. All right, so just a little bit of trouble on the slide, but hey Dave, is your audio working? I just want to test before I introduce you.
Just unmute your microphone, Dave, and it looks like we should be good.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, you sound great, man. All right, so let me introduce Dave Harrison. So I had the wonderful opportunity to work very hard with him with the Joint Base Lewis McChord hiring event and transition summit, and we spent several days talking to hundreds and hundreds of veterans. Dave is perfect for this program. He served in the U.S. Army as an infantryman and a career counselor. He was an infantry squad leader for Operation Just Cause, which was the invasion of Panama, and as a platoon sergeant for Desert Shield and Desert Storm with the 1502 Infantry. And the 101 101st ABN Division. Sorry, man. I'm tired. I'm getting tired. That was a lot to say in one run.
Hang in there. We're all on the same page right now, so we're good.
All right. Well, I'm going to get to your industry experience because your military experience is wearing me out. You have too much. So 15 years experience in the trucking industry. To introduce JB Hunt, they're thought of in the industry as one of our greatest innovators. They constantly reinvent the way we move things, and probably their most famous reinvention is they to a certain degree invented the intermodal business as what it is today, which is when we move containers across the seas and then put them on trucks and put them on trains and put them back on trucks. It's just an incredible business. So Dave, I'm going to let you take it from here, and I'll be back when you're done to introduce TMC.
Thanks, Jim. Can I get the next slide up? There we go. I want to make an announcement. Press release will follow shortly, but we are making a commitment to hire 10,000 vets in the next 5 years, and there will be a formal press release coming. I was just informed of that literally about 5 minutes before I got audio. Basically, if you don't know anything about J.B. Hunt, we're a Fortune 500 company. We're number 7 in GI jobs as GI friendly companies, and the highest rated company in the transportation industry currently. And we work pretty hard to get there. We're very veteran friendly. We're about 20% veterans right now, give or take a few people on disclosure. If you, I'm not going to read every bit on the slide, but our commitment to veterans is going to be sustained throughout the future of J.B. Hunt. I'd like to talk about what we're doing intermodal-wise for a minute. If we can get this video to play, it'll be a miracle. And if we can try that, please give it a shot. If not, we'll move on from there.
We are working to get it up right now, Dave. So give us 2 seconds.
I have faith.
Hey Dave, I want to say, so our industry commitments just jumped from 20,000 to 30,000 in the last couple of minutes. That's pretty awesome, man.
Yeah, it was great news to hear that, and to hear that we're formally put in that place, and the press release will be coming.
So, something tells me you're going to be putting me to work in very short order here.
I'm working on it. I've been working very hard on it.
All right, here's your video. Well, Dave, I think you might be out of luck on audio on this. Is anybody else hearing it?
Yeah, we've got no audio. Let's give it one more shot and we'll move on.
All righty.
I know everybody's got to have their time, and we want to get everybody get in. Basically, right there for a second, J.B. Hunt, he is a veteran, and he served for 2 years. And out of that, he was actually born as a very sharecropper and poor. Most people have no idea what poor is, and JB knew it, and he was the epitome of the American success story. And he ended up taking loans, 5 trucks to haul rice hulls to chicken farmers, and out of that we end up with a Fortune 500, $6 billion, almost $7 billion a year corporation that invented the intermodal industry. We're going to deliver 1.6 million intermodal loads this year. We're on track to do by end of 2015 deliver 2 million in 1 year. We own 40% of all the containers in the world that run rail, and it's growing about 17% per year every year, and has for the last 6 years. That's not going away. It's getting stronger as we speak, and it's the core of what we're doing with our veterans as well. Can we get the next slide, please? Typically what we're doing with our veterans is they're willing to go to our locations, and we have 67 current openings for veterans, fast-tracking veterans to local and regional driving opportunities in 22 states. There will be more locations in the future and more opportunities. Because of our position in the intermodal sector, we are able to look at a service member, say in the service right now, who will be getting out in 6 months, and commit to them a job, because we're going to be taking delivery on new trucks 4 months from now, 5 months from now, 6 months from now, that we've already paid for. So we can look somebody in the eye and say, I will have this position for you when you discharge your ETS, and if you're able to go to that location. This job, the slide you see, is typically one of our local driving jobs, intermodal. I just picked Chicago. We have it in Dallas. We have it in multiple locations available right now. It is a local job. They work about 11-hour days on average. The average yearly gross is a minimum set on all our veterans coming out that they're on track to do or already have that we've hired. We have veterans who we hired on track to do much better than that as well. They're no-touch, 5-day work week. There's built-in pay raise progression. Benefits are exceptional within the freight industry. Retirement from day one. This is typical of what we're doing on our intermodal side with our veteran hires. Now, if we go to the next slide, this is a dedicated account, because we are why we're the world's leader in intermodal. Currently, we have more dedicated accounts than anybody else in the freight industry of its kind that deal with that kind of structure. And that builds a major portion of J.B. Hunt's business. This is a typical position description for a dedicated account opening. Now, we are not able to sustain a dedicated account opening for months and months at a time. So those have to be filled on a quicker basis. So that's a little more timeline-wise what is available and not available. This is typically what we're looking at. This is our CNS wholesale account in Dover, Pennsylvania. Minimum average salary about $60,000 a year. It's a local driving job. They work about 12-hour days, and they have multiple schedules that they can fit into as we go. Typically, the local regional is all we rely on our veterans as far as time, as far as home time. And salary ranges as low as about $48,000, high end about $62,000 if they're just doing what we ask them to do. Can we go to the next slide, please? Now, before I get the CDL waiver real quick, I'm going to talk through it. When we bring in a veteran right now, it has to be someone who's eligible to get a CDL waiver. You know, there may be some changes coming very quick in 2015 allow us to expand. So if you're interested in a driving career and you want to reach out to us, whether or not you know what a waiver is, you don't know what it is, or you even think you're eligible, go ahead and reach out to us. But typically what we're doing is when we bring in somebody, we're going to bring them to an orientation, and we're going to hire them first. And then they're going to get some training from somebody like the CDL school, which you're going to hear from later. I just set up somebody else who's a graduate from them for Chicago Intermodal yesterday. And they're an excellent example of the type of schools we work with that our veterans are going to and we're pulling from. We recruit the driver. They're going to go to CDL school. They'll go for an agreed upon period of time. GI Bill normally will cover that. There's some other things we're working on to help our veterans with that. They will be paid a salary while they're there. We will provide lodging, and we will feed them. And then the veteran will come out of there and come straight to work for us in a finishing program, and they will train specifically on the account that we hired them for. And that's important. We're not setting anybody to fail. Our veterans have been very, very successful so far, and we intend on it staying that way. Now we're going to talk about the waiver a little bit. Anybody that's listening to this conversation or listening to this conversation has the ability to influence anyone who can get a CDL waiver, and what that is basically somebody in the service who drove a tractor trailer. And if we can show it, the commander can verify that, or if by MOS they are eligible, they can go to their DMV and they can take a written test and they get a commercial driver's license. It can fast track you to a local job like I just showed you in a career. And if that's the case, we are helping people do that. Now, literally, what you need to do is, if you think you're eligible, you need to go to either your TAP, talk to them, download the waiver, which I'll show you a picture of straight from the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration or your state DMV, and take the test. It's 50 questions. Whether or not you know what you want to do when you get out or not, do this, because once you have it, they can't take it away from you. It's something you can exercise once you get out. You may get out and 3 months later decide that, hey, a $60,000 a year local driving job sounds like a good idea for me to make my transition. Unfortunately, we'll go to the next slide. Unfortunately, very few soldiers over the last couple of years have known about this because, one, states were slow to come online. Two, and this is most important, you have to understand that in 40 states, you have 90 days in which to get your waiver, and if you haven't got it after ETS or discharge date, you're not going to get it. And until they change that, they've been authorized to change that to 1 year by the Department of Transportation, but until that happens, it's still a 90-day window. So that's why I say all service members who could be eligible or eligible need to do this just so they have that card in the back of their pocket and they can play it. Next slide, please. This is an example of the waiver. Next slide. Front page, back page. Commander can literally look at it and identify the type of equipment, and you can fast track through the DOT or through the DMV and get a driver's license, a commercial driver's license. Next slide. This is all the states that are currently involved in doing the waiver. Texas is in the middle of making some changes, so you may have to wait a couple of weeks for that to make that happen. If you've got a problem with that, give us a call and we'll try to help you. Next slide, please. This is a list of the states that have the 90-day windows currently in place. That means 90 days. If you haven't gotten the CDL waiver, you're not going to get it, at least that way. Okay. I believe we're done with my slides.
I'd like to really quick give the video a shot. I'm trying to share it from mine using the YouTube app that Edwin recommended, so I'm going to give it a shot. Please let me know if you can hear the audio.
Okay.
No audio, Mike.
Yeah, no audio.
Nope.
Sorry about that. We'll move on, and I'll still see if I can get that up and going, but I'm not sure at this point.
Yeah, well, let me, this is Jim again with the trucking track. So anybody, if they would like to see the video, you can go to the truckingtrack.org, and right now it's our featured video. So you'll see, if you go to the Learn page, you can see the video there, and you'll also notice that they pasted, I think you guys pasted the YouTube link into the chat, is that correct?
We'll make sure it's out in the chat, that it's on the YouTube page, and that it's also on the event page, so they're able to view it that way.
Perfect. Well, Dave, you did an awesome job for a few reasons. One, it was a great presentation. The second is you were perfectly on time. Very well done. You must have practiced. I think
Practice once.
We're still learning how to do these webinars. They're an interesting format. One thing that I probably didn't do as well as I should have is place all of these carriers in the context. So one thing that Dave was talking about is JB Hunt requires some experience. Okay, so what he was talking about was a military skills waiver that allows you to use your military experience to satisfy that that qualification. So if you decide to go to work for another trucking company, a lot of people aspire then to come back to a company like JB Hunt to do some of the really cool things that they can do. Now, our next presenters are TMC, and if you could move on to the TMC intro slide, that'd be great. It's another one, I believe. Yeah, actually, those two are out of order. So this is the intro slide. So you're going to need to go back one and forward two, I believe. But TMC, while we consider JB Hunt the innovators, a lot of people, and I don't even know if TMC knows this, but we kind of consider them the Apple of the trucking business. They have some very, very cool trucks, and they've got a lot of style. And they're different in JB Hunt in that they have flatbed trucks, which Cheryl will explain to you. And they have a tendency to be more over the road. So you'll remember in my presentation I talked about, well, 60% of our jobs there's a lot of home time. TMC is one of those companies that has some good home time, but they also go a little bit longer distances. And if you want to go all really long distances, they can accommodate you for that. Some people love the idea of being on the road and seeing the country and that sort of thing. Cheryl is the supervisor of driver recruiting at TMC. She was also a Marine. I think, if I remember right, she joined in 1980.
Oh, don't date me.
Oh, sorry, kid. Sorry. Well, why don't you give me a little bit more of your military experience and introduce yourself, because your bio is really, really long and summarizing.
I know. No, I did join the Marine Corps in 1980. I spent about 12 years on active duty and was in the intel field, kind of across the board there. And finally, my husband was also on active duty. He was a retired Marine as well. I eventually got out because we had children and somebody had to stay home between Desert Storm and everything else. So then I found my way into the civilian world and began working here at TMC about 6 years ago.
Well, fantastic. Well, why don't you introduce us to over the road and flatbed and the things that make TMC special?
Perfect. I think we can go back a slide. I think that's what I saw, the first part of the over the road part. Perfect. Just a brief explanation about long haul versus over the road. Basically what, there's different words to describe it. Long haul, we use the word line haul. Bottom line on that is it's basically over the road. In other words, you're in a truck with a sleeper berth. You're not going home and sleeping in your own bed that particular night. So you could be hauling freight from, a couple different states and then going back home every couple of days, or you could be going out all week long, home on the weekends, or if you really want to be out longer, there's some carriers that don't even get you home maybe for 3 to 4 weeks at a time. Now, here at TMC, we haul all 48 states, and we do go into Canada. But from the map that's on the presentation slide here, you'll see that yellow section, and that's our primary hiring area, and that's where the bulk of our freight comes from. Now, like I said, we do go into all of the other states and into Canada. It's just that we don't have as many loads that go into and out of, say, California or Washington. So we'll have drivers that are coming out from the yellow region, and they will maybe take a load into California and what have you. Most of our drivers will get home on the weekends. That little teeny green section down in Texas is drivers that are going to spend about 14 days out and then come home. But that yellow section, the majority of our guys are going to be home, on the weekend. There are some exceptions to that, though. We do have some dedicated freight, and those runs could be anything from home time daily, several times a week. It just really depends on what particular account you're on. Then you kind of almost have to ask yourself, when it comes to that home time, our guys get home, Friday, maybe Saturday, depending on the load. They leave out Monday, maybe Sunday night. So you really have to ask yourself, quality home time versus that dedicated daily home time options. Those guys might be out 11, 12 hours a day, 12, maybe even up to 14. So they're coming home at night, but just laying their head on the pillow. So there's just different things depending on what you're looking for and what's right for your family. In our particular system, we average basically 4 loads a week. So just over 4 loads a week. So we essentially will pick up our load on Friday for that Monday delivery. So our last load of the week is actually being picked up on Friday. They deliver that on sometime on Monday, and it's kind of the same thing throughout the week, finishing out the loads. And like I said, it's 4 loads on average over the week. Next slide, please. Skipping over there we go. The flatbed industry itself. Basically, flatbed freight is interesting in the sense that we don't have to load the freight. Basically, it is machine loaded. So, you're not responsible for the actual loading process of it. What you are responsible for, though, is the securing of that freight. So, tarping the loads, the chaining, the strapping, and all of that depends on the type of freight that you're hauling. Are you hauling building materials, raw materials for the industry, for coils, and different freight requires the different types of tarping and securement methods. And that's something that's learned here in our orientation. Our drivers will be having to go through maybe a little bit longer orientation process, but they're learning that specialized field of flatbed industry. Some of the drivers like to call it a brotherhood or the camaraderie that kind of goes along with that. It is, kind of a unique industry. They kind of like to stick together, and they help each other out from time to time. So that's something interesting. You're hauling some unique types of equipment, sometimes some oversized loads, and it just really kind of varies. We've got freight from, the World Trade Center piece that was shot before. That's some of the freight that typically, well, maybe not the World Trade Center, but that type of interesting loads could be hauled. We could just daily Home Depot loads in and out of Home Depot, locations, delivering to the stores, out of the distribution centers, that type of thing is some of the more typical freight that we would haul. Next slide, please. Now, to speaking on the business ownership piece of things, you know, there's company drivers, and then there's the owner-operators, or the traditional owner-operators. But first, let me speak a little bit about, you know, overall business ownership. TMC is unique in that all of our employees are actually business owners. We were in like last October 13, 2013. TMC was became a business. An ESOP company, employee-owned company. Harold Annette, our founder, actually is part of his succession plan, rather than sell the company or turn it over to family or something along those lines, decided to basically gift that to us. So that is something that every year where the shares are distributed out based on company profits. And we don't have to put in any kind of money like you would say in a 401k and then company matches and things like that. It's literally gifted money that goes into that. Those distributions are once, you know, if you were to leave, you take those with you. It belongs to you at that point in time. So everybody here at TMC is actually a business owner. But the other traditional owner-operator type agreements, they're different in different ways. If you do a lease purchase plan, there's different lease purchase options with different organizations. TMC does not have one of those, but I think it's important that everyone know that those options are out there for different, you know, different demands and different ideas. Some of the things that have to be looked at is it can restrict your services, because if you were to lease on or basically rent a truck from a carrier that does such an option, you're really still working for them. You can't take that truck and work for someplace else, for example. You would be paying the cost of that ownership, but you have to take most of that risk. You're not paying it, you know, you're not really be able to get any benefit out of it because you are taking some of the risk in that, or most of the risk. And I think that that's something to think about as you get into the industry. Maybe that may be something that you want to think about, say, down the road some, once you really understand and know those freight lanes and really how to operate that truck at its most operable. And if you're taking any time off for any reason, if you're still in the guard and or drilling reservist, for example, if you take any time off for that, it's basically negative cash flow, and you've got that truck payment still due and all the other costs that are associated with it, insurance and so forth. So those are some of the things that have to be looked at in that traditional owner-operator piece. Something that TMC has done, we like to operate our trucks, we reward our drivers as if they are business owners already. If they run their truck with, back up one more, just one more, back where you were for one, thank you, just real quick point on this. Depending on how efficiently they operate their truck, it equals higher pay. So if they don't deliver freight, you know, late, and they don't go out of route, and they manage their fuel, and all of the things that typically an owner-operator needs to do to be successful, if they operate their truck that way, they're given points in our system, and that generates a pay raise for them that next month. So the better they operate the truck, the higher their pay increase is. And that's basically our percentage pay option that we have here at TMC. We also pay in a mileage program. But my point being is we do reward for performance, and that's operated much the same as an owner-operator, a true owner-operator would have to operate his truck if he was to be taking all of the risk. At TMC, doing it this way, you take, you know, only a minimal amount of the risk, your own job, basically, not the entire business itself. Next slide. Just to drive home some of the points, the picture that you'll see right there is actually a picture of one of our owner-operators. You notice it's not black and chrome. He gets to pick whatever the truck looks like. It's going to be his. He only has to pass certain requirements with regards to the age of the truck and you know, safety guidelines and things as such of that. But some of the things to think about, pros and cons to owner-operator overall. One of the large direct benefits of that is, you know, good work decisions. You make good work decisions, you can make a ton of money. It takes a while to learn those good work decisions because you need a little bit of experience under your belt to become successful. But that's just a little heads up on that. You can really work when you want. It depends on how hard you want to work and how much money you want to make or need to make that truck payment. But essentially, you can work when you want. You can take total control over your loads. You can take your truck and work for whatever company, lease it on with whatever company you want, and whatever loads that you don't think is going to meet your needs, you don't have to run them. So that's a benefit. Again, you can drive whatever truck you want. So if you want one that's red, we've got one that's purple in the fleet, I think. So whatever works for you, you can do that. Take anyone or anything with you. And the reason I say it that way is because a lot of carriers do have restrictions with regards to the rider policy. So you can only take a family member, or pets are not allowed, or they are allowed, but only certain kinds. When we say when I say here anything along with you, snakes, birds, whatever floats your boat, you would be able to take that with you. On the negative side, and this is the risk factor to all of that, there are fixed costs, and they are due every month, whether you became ill, whether you've turned down too many loads, whether you're off for drill, whatever the case may be, they're fixed costs and they're due. The risk is 100% yours. You've got no one to blame. You've got no one to fall back on to assist you in that. There's less buying power in that. And what I say with that is, like, you have a flat tire, or you need some supplies and, you know, repairs or things like that. In a company-wide piece, you've got, you know, you're not paying for any of this anyway, but you've got that complete ownership to purchase one tire. A company buys tires all the time, and their cost of that one tire is going to be significantly less than, say, one ownership of a driver. And the largest cost overall, other than fuel, is going to be the cost of maintaining the equipment. Depending on the age of your truck, that cost could probably be around 15 cents a mile, and that's based on about, an 8 to 10-year-old truck on average. So 15 cents per mile of every mile you drive, if you are an owner-operator, goes straight into the maintenance of your equipment. That's before you pay for fuel and anything else. So those are some of the factors that have to be considered. And it's really kind of depends on how much of a risk taker you are, how confident and experienced you are, and whether or not you would want to enter into this more traditional type of owner-operator relationship. That's all I have, Jim.
All right, I have to add two funny things. First thing is, Cheryl said that TMC lets you pick the color of your truck, and they don't have very many requirements, but the industry will joke a little bit. One of the requirements is that the truck is very shiny and clean. Is that fair?
Yes.
Yeah, they like very, very shiny trucks at TMC.
Yes, correct. As a company driver, you would not be driving a red truck. It would be one of our traditional Peterbilt's black and chrome. And yes, you wash it every week.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And then the second thing is, I ran an owner-operator trucking company for a while, and one of my drivers drove around with a potbelly pig. So
there you go.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. All right, so I'm going to bring some context. So we throw so much information at you when you first start considering our industry, and it can be overwhelming, and it scares some people away. So let me see if I can make it a little bit easy for you. So if you were an 88 bike, or you drove any of those pieces of equipment that Dave showed in his presentation, you can get a hold of them, and they can walk you through what it means to be, whether or not you can work with them, or they can introduce you maybe to TMC, because TMC takes brand new truck drivers without any experience at all. So, so if you're thinking about this, if you have some experience, probably go to JB Hunt. Okay. If you're not sure, you can talk to them. If you don't have any experience, Cheryl has a whole team of people, and all of our Trucking Track sponsors on my previous slide do. But they have some people that can then start explaining these things to you and make it relatively easy to make the transition. The one thing I can say is that part of the reason we make a lot of money in this business is because there is a lot to learn. But these companies are experts at making it a little bit easier to learn those things. So now, our next person we're going to talk to is with Troops into Transportation. His name's Al Hanley. And so if you think about the progression, JB Hunt, little experience. TMC, don't have to have it. They do take experienced people, of course. But if you want somebody to hold your hand through this entire process, that's what Al's company does. They are the only CDL school that we ask to participate in this program. I've gotten a little more outspoken. There's a lot of great CDL schools out there, but there are some that aren't so great. So one thing I would recommend very highly is take a really hard look at where you do go to school if you need to go to school. And one wonderful thing about Al's company is part one is they're starting to open up locations at military bases. Okay. Another thing is they're kind of a soup to nuts thing. If you're really unsure what you want to do, you'll talk to their people. They will figure out a lot about you. They'll actually recommend you to one of the companies. It could be a JB Hunt. It could be a TMC. They will get a hiring commitment before you even go to school. They'll help you figure out your GI Bill, and they'll train you, and then they'll send you off to start making some money. So, so JB Hunt, little of experience, TMC none, and then this the Troops into Transportation if you want a soup to nuts, real hand-holding experience. So Al, I will let you take it away, and you gotta. I forgot to tell you to progress to Al's slides, by the way.
Sure. Well, thanks, Jim. Let's go to the next slide. That's our kind of landing page. And Jim, you bring up a good point, and we're here. Most importantly, I want to make sure anyone that's listening to the presentation, there is a choice of obviously driving schools or truck driving schools you could go to, and I think there's a couple of key things that, in my experience, I've been involved in this industry for over 24 years now. My grandfather and grandmother founded the original company, so our heritage goes back 50 years, and we've seen the industry change fairly significantly in that time period. And certainly in my 24 years, it's really evolved to be a very modern and professional industry. You know, the first thing I think you need to be looking for is the experience of the school that you're going to or interested in. You need to make sure they have a proven track record of success and historical, history in the industry. Equipment, you've heard both carriers talk about their equipment and the variety of it, so it's very important that you find a school that uses industry standard equipment. It doesn't do you any good to be training on equipment that's 15, 20 years old, and you're going to be going out driving a modern truck in 2 or 3 weeks. From the service component of any program, it's very important. You really need to be pre-hired. In today's industry, Jim's talked about the importance of drivers, how integral they are. You have 2 excellent companies that we work with very closely. They need drivers. In this marketplace, the labor is really ultimately the drivers. You're at a premium. So you need to really look for who's going to get you the most choices to figure out what fits your particular career goals. And obviously the program should help get you those choices, but also help you navigate the sometimes confusing employment picture. So next slide. I'll tell you a little bit about our program, Troops into Transportation. It's an initiative created by the CDL school and the partner trucking companies we work with to provide job training and placement to exiting service members. Some of our kind of larger goals are we want to be able to place a meaningful number of service members annually into positions in the ground transportation industry. We feel very strongly that in the next 2 years we'll be able to place 2,500 into the industry, so we'll be putting a dent in that hiring commitment that was announced there a few minutes ago. We also want to be, for service members to turn to find information. We want to be that source for them so that they can funnel through us. And then for carriers like JB Hunt and TMC, we want to make it easy for them to find the veterans. And when we kind of created this, one of the underlying the difficulties a lot of carriers said is we'd love to hire veterans. We can't find them with CDL licenses, and we can't find them to go to work when we need them to go to work, because they're encountering veterans and service members that had maybe 6 months to go or a year to go. So that's ideally where we come in. So the bottom line is We're trying to help service members and veterans get the career options you want and the paychecks you deserve. Next slide. And with the career options, and you've heard from Hunt and TMC, I think the underlying thing that you want to take away from this is we've kind of charted out in kind of a 5-phase career path that is extremely realistic and happens every day in the industry for the first 12 months in the industry. And it starts at step 1, where you graduate from one of our certified training programs. Step 2 at that phase is you kind of choose of the number of companies that have offered you a letter of employment who you want to work for. Now at that stage, you're going to become a trainee of that company, and I think you can tell by the 2 presentations that their idea of training and our idea of training is 2 different things. We're going to teach you the fundamentals, the basics, get you CDL qualified, DOT rules and regulations, the fundamentals you need to take their job. They're going to then spend some time with you getting you good at doing their job, because the faster they can get you good at doing what they need you to do, the more productive you're going to be. And then after that 6-week period, 4 to 6 week period, and it varies, it's pretty close with all the carriers, you're going to then have your kind of first set of career choices. Do you want to be solo? Do you want to be team? Do you want to be local or intermodal like you have with JV Hunt? So you got kind of career options thrown at you right away. After about 5 to 6 months, generally what we see, step 4, a new set of options kind of open up. You could become a driver trainer in some cases, training the people just like you were in step 2. You'll be then their mentor, their trainer. You'll be guiding them along. You can become an owner-operator. You can actually get into the operations, and when positions are open in these companies, we're talking about 2 very large companies here and the partner carriers we work with, 10,000, 12,000 employees. There's a lot of other support positions that are not necessarily drivers that might be available to you. And then after that period, around the end of your first year, step 5, a certain set of career options may open for you. You could become into driver recruitment. You could become a multi-truck fleet owner. You could be a dispatcher, terminal management, a lot of different things. So it's not just, we're getting your foot in the door with really multi-million, billion-dollar companies, and that's what's really exciting about what we do. It gives you the chance to kind of go where you want it to go. Next slide. And here's what we like to call a successful student profile. We literally have hundreds of these, and I want to point this one out. Interestingly, this is William Caswell, retired as an E7 out of Fort Stewart in Hinesville, Georgia. He was artillery background. He came to our program in January 2013. About the 25th, he finished his program. He was pre-hired by Conway, Stevens Transport, Schneider, Swift, and U.S. Express at the time. At the time, Bill decided that Conway was the right choice for him, based on the loads, based on the kind of career opportunities, and he went to work for them right away. Well, to illustrate what's happened in 11 or 12 months, that following November, Bill got in contact with us. We reached out to him on some stuff. We mentioned we had a position for a recruiter available in the Hinesville, Savannah area. Did he know anyone that'd be interested? He said, absolutely, I'd be interested. I did military recruiting when I was in the service. So Bill joined our team in December of 2013. He's now supervising that district and is about to take over kind of the recruiting activities for the entire state of Georgia for us. So just an example of how that career path works quite frequently, a lot of different ways. Next slide. So bottom line is our approach is we start with getting you a job offer from the carrier, coupling that in with the GI Bill certified training program, turning that into employment and career path. Our goal, like I said, it's about job first. When you work with us, our whole approach is where can we get you hired with, who can we get you hired with. Training includes not only CDL license, but the civilian credentialing that you need for employment. Just because you have a CDL doesn't necessarily mean you're ready for employment. There's other information as part of the CDL, as part of the industry that goes beyond the CDL process. Next slide. And then just quickly, some of our results. We're most proud. Program to date, January 2012, and this is through June of 2014. The bottom line number, I'm a bottom line guy, over 550 completed and employed veterans have come through the program. We're currently operating 3 campuses: Miami, Florida; Albany, New York; Fort Benning, and we're in the process of going operational in Fort Hood. And theoretically, March of 2015 is on the drawing board, Joint Base Lewis McChord out on the West Coast. So we currently work with 9 partner carriers. 2 more under negotiation and inclusion. Both J.B. Hunt and TMC are our partner carriers, so it's really kind of good that we're all here together. And if you want to give me the next slide. And talking about equipment and experience, I want to highlight a couple of things. If you look in the left part of the slide, this is a picture of one of our standard training facilities. So when you're evaluating a CDL program, an academy, a truck driving school, one of the things you want to look at is you want to look at the environment you're going to train in, the facilities, and also the equipment. In box number 1, you'll see those are actual industry vehicles that are parked on our lot. Drivers come home on home time. We allow them to park on our range. It's a secured facility. The employers like that. They know where their trucks are. It's easy for you. It gives you predictability. But take a look at box number 2. You'll see those are our actual road vehicles. Now, those are identical to what the drivers are actually driving. And that's important to you in evaluating this because you've got to train on relevant equipment. Box 3 is the other kind of varying trailer lengths and sizes that we train you on in the backing exercises because we're trying to position you not just for a single employer but to be ready to kind of take any career path in the industry. It's also notable as we do have what's called Class B training and straight truck training, so maybe if long haul trucking isn't for you, we do have options in other areas in the industry. And then box 4 simply illustrates that's our third-party testing area where we've been a authorized agent of the state of Florida for also over 20 years to actually conduct the skills exams on behalf of the state. And we have a separate area for that so that there's no kind of conflict or confusion during training. Next slide. So, in my opinion, why would you choose us? Well, number 1, I think I've shown that we have the experience and the proven track record of success. As far as the equipment, I think it's clear that we use industry standard equipment, and it's important. And obviously, we wouldn't be working with carriers like TMC and J.B. Hunt if we didn't. And service, again, our goal is to be your trusted guide and advisor. We want to help simplify the process and get you the predictability you need when you're getting into this industry. Our ultimate goal, like I said, is we seek to have you get the career options you want and the paychecks you deserve. Next slide. So there's some of our contact information. First and foremost, troops2transport.com is our web portal. It's designed to be viewed on a mobile device. You can apply online. You can request information. We have some great informational videos that are pretty fast-moving and fast-paced that are designed to give you information, provoke questions, help you decide. And our other contact information is there that I'm sure will get distributed at some point. I won't bore you by reading all these. And let's go to the next slide. And finally, I just want to thank you all for the time for listening to me. I want to thank you for viewing this segment. And again, each of you out there, I want to thank you for your service. We really take it seriously. We really appreciate it at the CDL School. Next slide.
All right, so this is Jim again, and I'm going to wrap us up here. One thing, listening to these presentations, I really have to laugh because I'm chuckling internally all the time with this program. So I've spent my whole life in this business, and these companies that we're working with now have been fierce competitors for years. And it's just been so amazing watching them work together, and it was just awesome hearing, all the different people on this call referencing and working with people who are truly competitors. And what I think you will see with our industry is we really just want to do a great job finding great jobs for veterans. So, and we need them, and our economy needs them. Our industry is desperate for you, and we want to make it easy. So here are your next steps. Before I give you the next steps, though, let me remind you, we threw a lot of language at you, and sometimes, we have almost as many acronyms as our military branches. But don't worry about that. You can contact us, and we'll walk you through what you need to know. So if your next steps, here's some recommendations. You can go to thetruckingtrack.org to learn more about JB Hunt, TMC, Troops into Transportation, and all of the other specific sponsors for this program. On that site, there's a mentor link if you want to get directly in contact with these companies. So you just click a couple buttons, and you can get hooked up with JB Hunt, TMC, or Troop into Transportation mentors. If for some reason it doesn't work out with those three, we have 12 awesome companies in the program, so you can check them out. On our Learn link in the menu, we have some really, really cool inspirational, educational videos that help you learn a lot more about the industry. Some of them are really well produced and fun to watch, so I recommend them highly. And we also have tons and tons of jobs on the Trucking Track site if you want to check them out. If you get lost with any of this, my team is always available. There's a phone number on the site, there's a contact form, and you can chat with us live. So we'll help walk you through it as well. And keep an eye out for all of the Hiring Heroes hiring fairs. We're at a lot of them, absolutely everyone on base. We just got back from Germany a little while ago, and we're in Pittsburgh today. And so in closing, I want to thank JB Hunt, TMC, and Troops into Transportation for doing such a great job. And I guess we're going to open it up to questions.
So at this point, we'll monitor. I apologize, actually have to hop off. We have another hangout here at 2 o'clock, so we're about 5 minutes behind on that. But what we'll do is there is all of the contact information out on the slides. And what I would say is to all of our viewers out on YouTube, if you could direct the questions, if that'd be okay with you folks, directly to the individuals who we've listed, and they'd be able to address the questions. Would that be okay?
Fantastic.
Yeah, great with us.
Great.
Great. That'll work.
Well, I really would like to take this time to thank Cheryl, Jim, Dave, and Al for coming on and really giving a presentation with really a wealth of knowledge to individuals who may be looking to pursue this as a post-service career opportunity. I think the value really in this is start sooner than later if this is an opportunity for you, so you can start looking for those waivers and things along those natures. I also would really appreciate if you're watching this or you're watching this after the live presentation and you know someone who is interested in this field, post-service, to share the link with them as well so they can see what opportunities are out there with in regards to the presenters today. So with that being said, again, thank you all for joining us and presenting today, and we'll close today's Hangout out.
And one last thing before you close. If you want to submit an answer to the challenge question at the beginning of this, just go to the Trucking Track website and submit it in the contact page. And we'll tally them all up and see who has the most creative answer. I will say I've heard some crazy ones, spider webs, but those aren't made by people, and electricity and light, and you wouldn't believe the ones we've heard. So I'm looking forward to hearing some good answers.
Very good, very good. And we've posted that question out on our event page, the YouTube page as well, so folks would be able to see that. So thank you very much, and we will talk to you all soon. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.